The Second World War was the single deadliest conflict in human history, claiming tens of millions of lives and reshaping the planet politically, socially, and economically. From 1939 to 1945, nations across the globe were drawn into a struggle that began with expansionist ambitions and ideological extremism, but ended with the collapse of old empires, the birth of new superpowers, and the dawn of a nuclear age. The war may have ended 8 decades ago, but its lessons remain urgent and vital for us today. World War II was not only a military conflict, it was also a human tragedy that revealed both the darkest and the most inspiring aspects of human behavior. It showed how propaganda and hate can drive entire societies to destruction, but also how courage, resilience, and cooperation can resist oppression and rebuild shattered worlds. To understand the lessons of this war is to understand much of the world we live in now. Lesson 1. The dangers of extremism and totalitarianism. One of the central causes of World War II was the rise of totalitarian regimes in Nazi Germany, fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan. These governments thrived on nationalism, militarism, and a complete suppression of dissent. Adolf Hitler's ideology was rooted in racism, anti-Semitism, and the pursuit of territorial domination. Millions were persuaded to follow him, not simply through fear, but also through carefully crafted propaganda that presented his ideas as a path to national greatness. The lesson here is that extremism is not born overnight. It grows gradually when societies become desperate, divided, or disillusioned. In Germany, the economic devastation of the Great Depression and the humiliation of the Treaty of Versailles created fertile ground for radical politics. People traded freedom for promises of stability and power. Today, this is a warning that unchecked authoritarianism, hate-driven politics, and blind obedience can still threaten societies anywhere in the world. Lesson 2. The value of global cooperation. When war broke out, many nations initially thought in terms of their own national interests, but the conflict quickly demonstrated that survival required alliances. The Allies, Britain, the United States, the Soviet Union, China, and others, were very different in ideology and goals, yet they recognized that cooperation was the only way to defeat a common enemy. Without collaboration across continents, the war might have had a very different outcome. This lesson carries forward into the modern era. The founding of the United Nations in 1945 was an attempt to create a platform where countries could work together to prevent future wars. Though imperfect, it embodies the idea that collective security is more powerful than isolated national ambition. In today's interconnected world, where threats like climate change, pandemics, and cyber warfare affect everyone, the spirit of global cooperation remains one of the most vital legacies of World War II. Lesson 3. The human cost of war. World War II left an estimated 70 to 85 million dead, representing around 3% of the world's population at the time. Entire cities were destroyed, from Warsaw to Hiroshima. Civilians bore a massive portion of the suffering, whether through bombings, forced labor, starvation, or genocide. The Holocaust, in particular, stands as the most horrifying reminder of the consequences of dehumanization. 6 million Jews, along with Romani people, disabled individuals, political dissidents, and others were systematically murdered. The human cost teaches us that war is never abstract. It is paid for in lives, families, and communities. This reality is why international law, human rights conventions, and war crimes tribunals became so important after 1945. Even today, in conflicts across the globe, the lesson is clear. When leaders speak lightly of war, they dismiss the incalculable suffering it brings to ordinary people. Lesson 4. The power of innovation and science. World War II was also a war of technology and science. Radar, code-breaking machines, advanced aircraft, and eventually nuclear weapons transformed the battlefield. The Manhattan Project in the United States created the atomic bomb, which was used on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, instantly ending the war with Japan, but beginning a new nuclear age filled with fear and tension. This lesson is twofold. First, science can decide wars, but it also carries moral responsibility. The scientists who worked on nuclear weapons wrestled with the ethics of their creation, and their work continues to shape debates over technology today. Second, innovation in wartime also produced civilian benefits. Computing, medicine, and engineering advanced rapidly. Modern society is still living in the technological shadow of World War II, reminding us that how we use science can either save humanity or endanger it. Lesson 5. Resilience and Rebuilding. The war left much of Europe and Asia in ruins, yet within a generation many nations had rebuilt their economies and societies. The Marshall Plan, for example, provided billions of dollars in aid to help Western Europe recover, while Japan transformed into one of the world's leading economies. Germany, once divided and destroyed, would eventually reunite and emerge as a central power in Europe. The lesson here is resilience. Even after total destruction, societies can rebuild if there is investment, cooperation, and a commitment to peace. For today's world, facing wars, economic downturns, and natural disasters, this shows that despair is not the end. With determination and vision, communities can rise again stronger than before. Lesson 6. The importance of memory and education. After the war, survivors and historians worked to ensure that its lessons were not forgotten. Memorials, museums, and educational programs preserve the stories of those who lived through it. Remembering is not only about honoring the dead, it is also about preventing the same mistakes from happening again. Yet memory fades with each generation. Young people today may see World War II as distant history, but its patterns, economic turmoil, propaganda, extremist politics, and persecution are not confined to the past. This is why education about the war, including the Holocaust and the resistance movements, is essential. Forgetting history is often the first step toward repeating it. Lesson 7. The fragility of peace. World War I was called the war to end all wars, yet only 2 decades later the world plunged into an even greater conflict. This demonstrates how fragile peace is when grievances are left unresolved. The punitive terms of the Treaty of Versailles after World War I did not build stability, but instead planted the seeds of resentment and revenge that helped fuel the rise of Hitler. The lesson for today is that peace must be actively maintained. It cannot be assumed or taken for granted. Diplomacy, compromise, and fair treatment of nations are necessary to prevent future conflicts. The failure to create lasting peace after World War I reminds us that ending a war is only the beginning of building a future without another one. Lesson 8. The role of ordinary people. It is easy to view World War II only through the lens of generals and leaders, but millions of ordinary people shaped the war's course. Resistance fighters in occupied France, villagers who hid Jews from Nazi persecution, factory workers producing supplies, and soldiers on every front all played critical roles. Even in the face of oppression and terror, individuals chose to act with courage and humanity. The lesson here is that history is not only made by leaders. Ordinary people have power, both for good and for evil. Following propaganda blindly can make individuals complicit in atrocities, but acts of bravery and compassion can save lives and inspire generations. In today's world, where social movements and grassroots activism continue to shape politics,